أهلا وسهلا. Welcome. We are back. نحن الآن في الدرس الخامس chapter 4 القواعد في صفحة 97, so page 97. And in the next lesson we're going to be going over numbers, so that will make things a little bit easier. But we are going to start off with today's lesson talking about المعرفة والنكرة. Okay. المعرفة والنكرة. And this is something that we have covered before. We covered it a couple of chapters ago, but we're going to revisit it now that we have the context of جملة اسمية. Now that we have nominal sentences, we can revisit المعرفة والنكرة because nominal sentences and الاسم والصفة, noun-adjective phrases, in Arabic can look similar. And the reason why they can look similar is because we don't have the word is. In English, the word is helps you separate between what's a phrase and what's a sentence, right? So if I say tall person, and if I say the person is tall, there's an is in between there. You can tell the difference between which one is a jumla, a complete sentence, and which one's a phrase. It's a little bit more difficult bil Arabi, but we're going to try to make it as easy as possible. So in order for us to do that, we have to talk about al-ma'rifa wa nakira. So let's revisit that. And you can pause the video and take out your notes from a couple of chapters ago. I want to say it was chapter 2 or 3 that we covered this. Al-ma'rifa. ما هي المعرفة? What is معرفة? Things that are known. Things that are definite. Okay. Ma'arifa comes from the verb يعرف that we've done, to know, right? So things that are known, things that are, grammatically we say definite, okay? They can be specific, sometimes general, and the easiest way that words are ma'arifa is if they start with alif lam, right? So if I say bab, that's an example of a word that's nakira, which is indefinite. If I add the definite article to it, al-bab, now it's ma'rifa. So it's definite. So al is one of the ways that you can make a word ma'rifa. What are some other ways that you can make a word definite? Dhamir, pronouns. So if I say bayti, bayti, whose house is that? It's my house. So we can make, we call them dhama'ir, which are pronouns. We can make nouns definite by adding a pronoun to it, because if I didn't have that pronoun, it would just be bayt by itself. Okay, so creating a possessive pronoun telling me whose it is, that will make it a definite word. Other things that are definite, all your other pronouns are always considered definite. So if I say huwa, hiya, ana, these are all definite, they're all specific, so we consider them ma'rifa. And then asma al-ishara, which are words that point out, like hada, hadihi, this, right? These kinds of words are always definite. There are a couple other categories which we won't get into, but I will also add ism alam, which are names. So if I say Layla, Mona, Muhammad, Khalid, all of those kinds of words are always definite because they're names of people or names of places. Okay? And nakira is the opposite, meaning it's a word that is not a pronoun, it's not a name, it doesn't have alif lam, it's just the meaning of something. If I say bab, it's a door. Bayt, a house. If I just say ab, a dad, right? It has this implied meaning of a. So when you have a word that is nakira, when we translate it, it tends to have the meaning of a something. Okay, so that's an easy way to distinguish between the two. Okay, so if you don't want the word in there, then that means it's going to have to be definite. And the easiest way to make it definite is to add alif lam. Okay, so that is al-ma'arifa wa nakira. So now let's move on and let's talk about just revisiting ism al-sifa. And ism al-sifa, remember we said, were noun-adjective phrases. And what were the key components of noun-adjective phrases? The key components, of course, is that you have a noun and an adjective. That's obvious because it's in the name. And the noun-adjective in this phrase, they both have to match in what? Good. So they match in gender, and they have to also match in definiteness. Okay. Later on, we've also actually done, they have to match in number. So remember when we talked about chapter 2 and 3, if your noun is a plural, the sifa has to match it. And then there's one more thing that they have to match in, that's case, and that's not something you're going to learn till next semester. Okay, so these are the 3 important things. So we're going to focus in today on matching indefiniteness. Okay, so what does that look like? I'm going to put together a couple of categories here. And if you look at the bottom of page 97, you'll see I'm drawing a very similar chart to that. Okay, and the first category that's listed there is ism, sifa, nakira. Ism sifa nakira, meaning an indefinite noun-adjective phrase. Okay, an indefinite noun-adjective phrase. So if I want to say a small class, we put the word class first, saf, and then the word small. Saf, saghir. And this has the implied meaning of a small class. Okay. We could do another one if we wanted to do a big city. We put the word for city first, Medina, big, kabira. Notice in this case, both of them end in a ta' marbuta because they're both feminine words. Okay, so this would be a big city. If we wanted to do busy students, we put students first, طلاب. طلاب is plural, so what's the word for busy is مشغول, and how do you make it plural? They're human, so we add واو نون. طلاب مشغولون, meaning busy students. We don't in English say a busy students, so you could translate it to some busy students. It's indefinite, it's not specific. Okay. So this is your first category. These are ism sifa, noun adjective phrases that happen to be indefinite, nakira. So what happens if we want the same thing? We want to keep it a noun adjective phrase, ism sifa, but we want to make it ma'rifa. We want to make it definite. Okay, making these definite definite phrases. Saf saghir is a small class. If I wanted to say the small class, what do we attach to the beginning of both of those words? We put as-saf, as-saghir. And now it has the meaning of the small class. And remember when we talked about noun adjective phrases, we said that both the noun and the adjective have to take the alif lam. Okay, you're going to do the same thing. Medina Kabira, you're going to change it to the big city. Okay, so you should see Al-Madina, Al-Kabira, the big city. Okay. And then how would I say the busy students? Al-Tullab, Al-Mashghulun. Remember, I am going pretty quickly. Just pause the video, practice it, and then come back to it. Try it out, and then come back and see if your answer is correct. So the busy students. So this now we have 2 examples of phrases, one which is definite and one which is indefinite. So what we're going to look at today is what happens, let's just redo that line. Let's see what happens if we take the same words and instead of making it a phrase, we want to make it a complete sentence. Jumal. Jumal are sentences. Okay. So now this category, C for complete sentence. That makes it easy. Okay. This right here is a noun adjective phrase. This also is a noun adjective phrase. The difference is just you have indefinite here and you have definite here. So a complete sentence, you're going to have what in a complete sentence? Because we're talking about nouns, the type of sentence that we're talking about here is al-ismiya. Okay? We're talking about nominal sentences. So now we got to think back to the last lesson. What were the two parts of the sentence when we had a nominal sentence? We had al-mubtada, the subject, and al-khabar, the information about the subject. So now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it, I'll do it in blue still. Okay, so now we're going to have the same thing, but we're changing it from a phrase into a sentence. So it's the same words, and the way that we create the sentence is the difference between ma'rifa and nakira, the definite words and the indefinite words. Okay, so when we talked about jumla ismiya, we had said that jumla ismiya has to start with mubtada, the subject, which is ismun nakira. Okay, so al-mubtada, I'll put it on the side here. Al-mubtada, the subject, is usually, ismun ma'rifa, is a definite word. Okay, so when we look at these sentences, if I want to make any of these phrases, so let's take the first line. I want to say, instead of small class or the small class, I want to say the class is small. The first word is going to stay definite, as-saf. Okay? And then the second word is going to be indefinite. When you have that break between definite and indefinite, so I'm going to just draw a dotted line here, where the word before the line is ma'rifa, is definite, and the words or word after the line, nakira, indefinite, doesn't have alif lam, it's not a pronoun, it's indefinite word. Okay? This is how we create the most simple context of a jumla ismiya, where this word is going to be considered ma'rifa, and it's your mubtada, and this nakira is considered khabar, which is the information. So now what we're saying is the class is small. And what I'd like you to think about is that this line that you're putting here, just visualize that line or draw it in, dotted line between those words, between what's ma'rifa, what's definite, and nakira, what's indefinite. And that line will represent the is or the are or the am, the being verb. Okay, so now let's do the same exact thing with this next one. We want to say the city is big. So al-Medina has alif lam, and kabira will not. So now it has the meaning of the city is big. And in this case, the definite word, al-Medina, mubtada, that's what we're talking about. Here's your line between the two. Kabira, khabar, that's what you're telling me about the city. So in the noun adjective phrases, ما في مبتدا والخبر. There's no mubtada or khabar. You only have mubtada and khabar in jumla ismiya. Okay, so once we talk about jumla ismiya, nominal sentences, that's when we have a subject and a predicate, the information. Okay? So let's do the same thing with the last one. We want to say the students are busy. So الطلاب معرفة مشغولون نكرة. So now we have the students. Here's an example of a plural. Are busy. طلاب ما مبتدأ مشغولون خبر. Okay. This is how we can look at these phrases and sentences and distinguish what is the difference. Is it a complete sentence or is it not? Okay. So now what I want to do, if you need to take notes, pause the video, do some practice, go over it again. We're going to move on, flip the page in your book. And what I want to talk about is what happens when we have a noun-adjective phrase okay? And both of the words are not going to become definite with an alif lam, but it's still a phrase, okay? So here's the example that I'll give you. My Egyptian friend. Here's the example. My Egyptian friend. In this case, it's still a phrase, right? You're not telling me that your friend is Egyptian. You're not telling me anything about your Egyptian friend. You're just saying my Egyptian friend, ... We don't know what's next. It's just a phrase, okay? So in this case, if you want to say this phrase, my has to go with the first noun, the thing you're talking about. So are you talking about Egyptian or are you talking about friend? We're talking about friend. So here's your noun and here's your adjective. This is the description, right? So the pronoun is going to be attached to the noun. So we're going to say my friend, صديقي, and if you wanted to make it feminine, you could. صديقتي. And then you want to use the word Egyptian. Remember, Egyptian was مصري. Because this is a phrase, though, it's a phrase. Noun-adjective phrases have to match, and they have to match in definiteness. Well, the first word in this phrase is already definite because it has this pronoun in it. How can we make this word definite? We just add an alif lam to it. You add alif lam to it, and now it's definite. Okay? And then if you're talking about my Egyptian friend and you want to make it feminine, of course put ta مربوطة. صديقي المصري. صديقتي المصرية. So now what you have in both of these is a phrase. This is a noun-adjective phrase. It is not a complete sentence. If you wanted to make it a complete sentence, if we said صديقي and the next word did not have an alif lam, صديقي مصري. Now what's happening is that this first word is definite because it has a pronoun. It's my friend. It's not just a friend. It's my friend. And the second word is indefinite because it doesn't have a pronoun, doesn't have alif lam. It's not a name. So that means what's before this line is definite. What's after the line is indefinite. That means it's a complete sentence. So this is our mubtada and this is our khabar. And in this case, we're saying my friend is Egyptian. So notice how important of a role this alif lam here plays. It changes the entire context and meaning of this phrase or sentence based on whether it has that alif lam in the adjective or not. Okay? Let's do another example. Let's do her American relatives. Is this a phrase or a sentence? It is a phrase. Her American relatives, what? I don't know. There's no other information that you're giving. So this is a phrase, okay? So this is a phrase. But it is definite because it's specific. You're telling me it's hers, right? So if we have a pronoun, we have to attach the pronoun to the noun. What's the noun we're talking about? Is the relatives, okay? So we have the word aqarib is relatives. If I want to say her relatives, aqaribuha, just add it. And then I want to say American. This is a phrase, so how can I make the word American definite to match aqaribuha? Aqaribuha is definite because it has this pronoun here. So we're going to add alif lam. Al أمريكي is American. أمريكيون is the plural since أقارب is plural. أقاربها الأمريكيون. Okay. Now, if we wanted to change this and we wanted to say her relatives are American and we want to make it a sentence, there's an R here. That means these words are going to be definite in the beginning of the sentence, and these words are going to be indefinite, nakira, at the end of the sentence. So we're going to do the same thing. Her relatives, aqaribuha. There's no word for are. The way that we do it is the word after it is indefinite, American. So we're not going to put alif lam. Amrikiyun. Okay. The only time you have an exception really to this rule is if you start the sentence with a pronoun. Okay. So if you start the sentence with a pronoun, and if you say, for instance, Ana Tazeen. I'm Tazeen. So in this case, this is your mubtada and this is the khabar. Anytime you start with a pronoun, that is always going to be mubtada by itself. Ana, huwa, hiya, nahnu, all of those are always going to be mubtada. And because I'm telling you my name, this is also definite. So here's an exception. It's an example of when you have your khabar is definite, and it's usually when you're talking about a name. Okay. But anytime you have any other noun or adjective, we're going to follow the same rule. So now we are going to add one more piece into all of this. If any of this is confusing, pause it. Go back and rewatch these slides and then come back to this one again. Okay, because this is going to add another element. And that is what happens with words like هذا and هذه. هذا and هذه means this. Okay. Both of them mean this. This is masculine and this is feminine. And هذه can also have the meaning of these, because remember, noun adjective, when we have when you have non-human plurals, right? When non-human inanimate objects are plural, they're treated as feminine. So when you say هذه with those kind of words, it has the meaning of these. Okay. So we are going to add this word. And the way that we're going to do it is like this. I'm going to give you 2 examples. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 examples. Okay. And what I want you to do is you're going to take a minute and look at these sentences. Pause the video, take a minute, and look at these sentences. Try to see if you can decipher the meaning. Okay. So in the first one, we have هذا. And I told you guys in the beginning of this lesson that هذا and هذه are always considered معرفة. They're always definite. Okay. So هذا معرفة. مطعم. Is it a name? It's not. Does it have alif lam? No. Does it have a pronoun at the end? No. So is it a definite word? It is not. It's nakira. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little line here. That means when I'm translating it, I'm going to translate هذا is this, and that line is my being verb. This is, and what is this? مطعم عربي. An Arabic restaurant. Okay. This is an Arab restaurant. Okay. Now, if I change it, in the next one, we have هذا المطعم. So هذا معرفة, المطعم معرفة. عربي نكرة ما في ألف لام. So now we have this restaurant. And then that line is Arabic. Now, if I say هذا المطعم العربي, can I put any line there between what's definite and what's indefinite? I cannot, because هذا is always definite. المطعم has ألف لام. العربي also has ألف لام. So in this one we say this Arab restaurant. So notice how هذا, with words that have or do not have ألف لام, how that changes the meaning, okay, of that phrase or of that sentence. So let's look at some more examples. This time let's use هذه. Okay. I'm going to pause the video and try to decipher these sentences. Okay, so in the first one, we'll go through it one word at a time. Okay. So you tell me, هذه, the first thing you're going to decide is معرفة أو نكرة. Is it definite or indefinite? That's the first thing you're deciding. معرفة أو نكرة. هذه. معرفة is definite because هذه are always معرفة. بيوت. نكرة ما في ألف لام. There's no ألف لام, there's no name, there's no pronoun. So here's your line. قديمة نفس الشيء. Same thing. So in this case, we say these, we're going to translate it as these because we're talking about houses. They're plural. This line comes after. So these are بيوت قديمة. قديمة is your adjective, so that comes first. Old houses. هذه بيوت قديمة. هذه البيوت قديمة. هذه معرفة أم نكرة؟ معرفة. البيوت معرفة. قديمة نكرة. So هذه معرفة because it's هذه. البيوت has ألف لام, so it's considered معرفة. قديمة doesn't have ألف لام, so it's not. So that means these two words must go together. These houses. Then you have your being verb are old. And anytime you're looking at these, whatever is before that line is considered مبتدا, whatever is after that line is considered خبر. So مبتدا and خبر. هذه البيوت القديمة جميلة. هذه معرفة. البيوت معرفة. القديمة معرفة. جميلة نكرة. So now I have to put it together. We have these houses and old. Adjectives always, in English, adjectives come first. In Arabic, they come after the noun. So these old houses, then we have our being verb are, what are they? Jamila, beautiful. Okay. So this is how you're going to decipher between the meanings of these words based on definiteness. Okay. And then I'm going to add one other example to the mix. And that is, what if you have a sentence and I want to say, this is the whoever I'm talking about. This is the something. This is the house. Like, this is the house I was talking about. or this is the president. Okay. This is the season. Anything that has this is and the. This is, we always start it هذا or هذه, depending on the gender of the thing you're talking about. But if I wanted to say the house, and I left it like this, what would this actually mean? We have هذا is ma'arifa, and al-bayt is also ma'arifa because it has alif lam. So if they're both definite, that means they're matching and they go together. It's a phrase. So if I want to say this is the house, meaning the word after is, I want it to have al on it. I want it to have the. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a buffer in between. Okay. I'm going to keep with those words. We have هذا and al-bayt. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this pronoun هو in between. هذا هو البيت. And this هو in between provides a buffer so that you can separate the two and be able to tell that, oh, okay, this is a complete sentence I'm saying. I'm not talking about this house. I'm saying this is the house. It adds that emphasis. And in this case, you would still say that هذا is مبتدا and whatever comes after it is considered خبر. Okay? So this would be, this is the house. Okay? So if I wanted to say, these are the classes. Let's say I'm talking about, these are the classes you have to take. So we're going to use, classes is a plural, so we're going to use هذه for these. And because we're talking about something feminine, we're going to use هي instead. هذه هي الصفوف. So when you want to say this is the or these are the, you're going to use the pronoun هو, هي, or hum as a buffer. Okay? That's what's going to be the buffer in between. In the sentences I give you, you're probably only going to be focusing on هو and هي. So if I want to say, this is the car. Car is feminine. Start with the noun that you're talking about. It's a feminine noun. So we're going to say هذه is the. So I'm going to put a buffer in between, which is our pronoun. Because this is feminine, we're going to use the feminine pronoun. هذه هي السيارة. If it was a masculine word, we use هو. هذا هو الرجل. This is the man. Okay. So if you want a clue for yourself, you can think of هذا, and if the word after it does not have alif lam, it means this is. If you have هذا and the word after it has alif lam, it means this and whatever that word is connected to it. And if you have هذا هو with a word that starts with alif lam, this is the. That's your clue. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to look at the assignment. And the assignment that we have, let me scroll to the first page, looks like this. You have some sentences and some phrases, and you have to decipher the meanings of them. So I'm going to do the first one with you, and this is how you're going to do it. You're going to look at it, and you're going to decide whether or not it's a sentence or a phrase. Okay? So you want to decide, if it's, why can't I write on it? If it's a sentence or a phrase. That's the first thing you want to do. Okay? The second thing that you want to do is actually, I'm going to erase that. The first thing that you should do is of course, look at the meaning of the words. And then you're going to decipher ma'arifa, nakira. Definite versus indefinite. Based on that, then you can decide, is it a sentence or a phrase? Okay. If it is a sentence, you're going to point out what's the mubtada and the khabar. And remember, the mubtada and the khabar, whatever is your line between your words that are ma'arifa, definite, and words that are nakira, that's your line. What's before is mubtada, what's after is khabar. And then the third thing you're going to do, at-tarjama, translation. Okay? So if we do the first one together, draw the dot, there we go. So we have الرسائل طويلة طويلة الرسائل. So the letters, and then we have the word طويلة. طويلة means tall when it's about a person, and when it's about things, it can mean long. الرسائل has ألف لام, so that's a word that is معرفة. طويلة, does it have ألف لام? Is it a name? Does it have a pronoun? It doesn't. So I'll draw a line here. If you're able to draw a line, so this word is ma'arifa, what's before the line is always definite, what's after the line are indefinite. So wherever it is, that definite and indefinite, where did that go? There we go. Okay. If you're able to draw that line, that means that it is a jumla. So whatever is before this is your mubtada, and whatever is after that line is your khabar. And then you do the translation. So in this case, we have the letters. That line is your being verb, are long. Okay. I'll do number 2 with you. الرسائل الطويلة. So pause the video, do it, and then come back. الرسائل ألف لام الطويلة ألف لام. They're both ma'arifa. So can I draw a line between ma'arifa and nakira? I can't, because there's no word that is indefinite. So that means this is an example of a phrase. There's no is, there's no are in a phrase. In this case, we have the adjective, because it's a phrase. Remember, noun, adjective, phrases, what comes first is the noun and then the adjective. And in English, it's the opposite. So we're going to put the adjective first. The long letters. Okay. So this handout, you'll see in the next assignment, this is exactly how I want you to decipher the sentences. So you're going to mark whichever words are ma'arifa nakira by just drawing a line between them. So you don't have to write out ma'arifa nakira, just draw a line and put a meme for mubtada, what's on the right, and a kha for khabar, what's on the left, and then translation. And if it's an example like this one, there's no line, it's just the translation. You could circle what's making them definite if you want, but they're not always going to be definite. You might have examples where they're both nakira, indefinite.